Adam Savage here in my cave with a show and tell that involves another impossible object for us both to enjoy. A few weeks ago on the channel, I showed you a magnificent facsimile replica of Leonardo da Vinci's Lysister Codex. I believe the Lysister I Codex. There are 3 Lysister codices. And it was the work of Italian sculptor Stefano Tartaglione, who I said I had collected several pieces of his work. And today I'm going to show you, of the pieces that I own, the most impressive. And sitting here in front of me on this piece of Tyvek, which is in fact how a museum would probably be storing stuff like this. Tyvek is, you use it in your painter's suits. It is a non-woven synthetic fabric. When we go to the Smithsonian, all of the Apollo artifacts are in foam, but the foam is lined with this archival Tyvek, so no chemical off-gassing affects the precious artifacts. I'm doing it here as a kind of, in order to talk about this, because the other day, because a few weeks ago when I showed the Lysister Codex, there are people in the comments complaining that I was handling this object with dirty hands. And the thing that I want to tell you is, of course I'm handling it with dirty hands, because it's not a $50 million priceless object. That's kind of the great gift that Stefano gives to the world by making these replicas, is he makes something impossible that can be handled by people. So this is the Lysister Codex. It was bought by Thomas Cook in the 1700s. It is a collection of thoughts. It is not a linear book of Da Vinci's. It is more of a collection of drawings and writings on astronomy, rocks, fossils, the movement of light. And this wasn't how Leonardo went out into the field and took notes. No. These codices were actually objects he assembled from his other drawings in order to put them into a central location. So there's a way in which we revere this as an object of Leonardo's genius that he completely intended for that. He was making these as objects to show what he was thinking and the breadth of his understanding. I really believe that. So it's called the Lysister Codex because Thomas Cook, who bought it, ended up becoming the Earl of Leicester. And that's often how some very famous objects get named. They get named by the person who owned them. I don't know who owned it between the Earl of Leicester and Armand Hammer, the oil magnate who happened to own Arm & Hammer Baking Soda Company, or bought it because his name was Arm & Hammer. I'm not sure exactly how that works. Anyway, Arm & Hammer owned this codex for a long time, and for that period of time, it was referred to as the Hammer Codex. The Hammer Codex went up for auction at Christie's, I believe, and sold for then $30 million to Bill Gates, who did not call it the Gates Codex. He reverted it back to its original name of the Lysister Codex. Stefano has replicated, in the same way that he replicated the Lysister Codex, every one of the 36 sheets that make up the 72 pages of this folio. And I just want to show you here, I'll pull out the center one. So these come from super high level scans that the museums make of their artifacts. I do get the feeling that they're somewhat carefully controlled by the Italian government, but Stefano has access to these scans, and then he prints them with a degree of alignment accuracy that is really, really difficult to do. And I'm not even sure on what kind of printer this happens. I don't think that it's a laser printer, but it could be. I don't think it's entirely, I don't think it's like a printing press. Anyway, that part is a mystery to me. But I do know that this is the only opportunity I will ever have to lay my fingers, to lay my filthy hands on an object of such surpassing rarity. And again, that's why I'm touching it with dirty hands. I put it on the Tyvek to kind of open up this discussion. I love the idea of building a collection of objects in which, did I already say this in the last video? Where I would sit across from someone and show them impossible objects. Yes, I mean, let a 10-year-old kid know that they're touching something that is precisely the accurate replica of a $50 million thing that only, The reason you wear white gloves when you handle this stuff is because we know that it has a limited lifespan, right? Like, we are trying to extend it as much as possible so that finger oils don't start to deteriorate it. But we don't have to worry about that with the facsimile replica. We can just enjoy sort of diving into the space of the mind that built this collection, that put all these ideas down, that showed us a kind of a brand new way of thinking about the world and about thinking about wonder. And frankly, I think that if you were able to have met Da Vinci, I have nothing to base this on. I don't think I've read a biography of Da Vinci. I might have a long time ago. So this is just my feeling, but I like to imagine that if you visited Da Vinci's studio, he would be excitedly showing you all the different things that he was working on. That's the way I'd like to picture him. The ultimate polymath, the ultimate nerd cred for being interested in absolutely everything about how all aspects of the world works. And then collating all of these ideas and thoughts into these documents. So Leonardo's codices are a way that he reaches through time to tell us about how interested he is in the world. And I feel like Stefano's work likewise reaches back through time to celebrate what Da Vinci did. I think of this as a time machine. The other night, my wife came home with canned peaches. She was at the grocery store and she realized she hadn't had canned peaches in something like 40 years, and she brought home canned peaches, and we opened it together with a can opener, and we sat there at the kitchen counter and we each ate a peach in light syrup, and it transported us both back to our grandmother's respective houses in the early 1970s, being 7, 8 years old and eating those peaches. That is a sense memory that immediately took me back in time. This also, I think, is in the same category. And I'm so grateful to Stefano for continuing to make these things. Every time I look through and I see stains that move from one page to the next, the hand lettering that was done after Leonardo, the hand numbering of the pages, every little detail tells a story about a person that drew on this thing. And in some cases, multiple people. Like I said, Leonardo, I don't think, did not make the page numbers on some of these. They were done after the fact. And again, like its predecessor, it smells like an old book because some of the same chemical compounds has been introduced to this in the form of a cologne. Dudes, yeah. Someday, if I ever have a museum exhibit, I hope that you will get to see this in it, because that would be part of an investigation of my mind and the things that I'm interested in. Thank you guys for joining me for another dive into an impossible object. I will have more to show you soon. I'll see you next time.